In this week's injury persona wrap, going to be looking at Nathan Cleary's concussion, Kinney's neck injury, and poor old Ryan Papenhausen's reoccurrence of his ankle injury. I'm Ian Hawkins, and this is Sport is Life. The purpose of sport, as I see it, is to see your vision become a reality, find your voice, create strong connections, and learn to trust your body. Welcome to this week's injury persona wrap. Always seems to be injuries in any sport. Rugby league in particular seems to cop it. And some big name ones this week, and the top of that list, Nathan Cleary, only 6 minutes into the big grand final rematch, getting a concussion. So we're going to start there. Concussion, head injuries, they all fall under a similar sort of conversation. I remember my dad used to bang his head under the house regularly, be a source of laughter for us kids, because you'd hear the thud and then you'd hear him scream out in frustration. And I laugh because it's just how I'm wired around injuries. My kids laugh at me when I get injuries, not very serious ones, but things like just bumping their head. And also I've been known to do the same thing around hitting my head. And being ever curious about that, I started to wonder why that might have been. And I realised that quite often when I was having these head knocks, I was in a place of self-loathing, like kicking myself while I was down, overthinking around some area that I hadn't got right, particularly around perfectionism. And what I've come to realise is that it's usually the pattern. I worked with a woman a few years ago. She'd just had quite a bad car accident where she'd had a concussion, and she'd also had a number of concussions. She'd come off her motorbike a number of times. She'd had another time where it was a car accident. She'd had a fall another time, and each time she'd felt like her capabilities had reduced. And this was when she was in her early 70s. So she was quite worried about her future because her concentration was going. She was unable to finish her sentences because she just couldn't get the word. So there was a lot of anxiety around that. It really hit her confidence, and she was like, it was having quite a profound impact. And what we unpacked was the same thing, is like, where was she being ultra hard on herself? Like the car accident, it wasn't her fault, but she'd gone into a spiral of things, of like why it might have been. And it was also at a time in her life where she was being quite hard on herself for a number of different situations. And so the pattern is like the head injury often brings about compassion. Obviously not from the example I used at the start when your children laugh at you, but at a bigger level, when the head injuries are bigger, like people describe how it was such a uplifting experience from a spiritual perspective, because they got so much of an outpouring of love, people genuinely concerned. And this is something that there's research on this. There's, like, I've got my own anecdotal evidence. A mate of mine, awful soccer injury, the press fracture of his forehead, pretty close to dying. We were talking to the surgeon afterwards, and she came in and was just talking about just how close it had been. But my mate was talking about this outpouring of love that he got from people, and this from surprising people and visitors he got and messages he got, and the goodwill that he got from that. So positive. So again, reminding people that this is not a conscious choice. People are not doing these things for attention or to have these sort of experiences, but it's a hardwired pattern. It's happening at a deeper level. But when you can change that reaction and you can change the outcome, that woman that I talked about, I've got a great case study from her of how she was able to fix up her thinking so that she had absolutely no anxiety about finishing sentences. She wasn't worried about her head injury and the impact that it had on her brain. And just removing the worry and the anxiety meant that she was able to go back to a fully functioning state. She was able to move on from the job that she was in that was causing a lot of this stress and move into a job that she absolutely loved. And you might be thinking, well, she's 70, what's she still doing working? But she was in a work that was really fulfilling, different setup in the US, and she was fit and wanted to be working and yeah, just different state. I don't have plans to retire in a hurry. Like I love what I do and I want to keep doing it as well. So I can relate to that. But she was able to get herself out the other side and have none of those repercussions. So again, I want to remind you, this is not a replacement for medical treatment. This is not, I'm not saying that there aren't necessarily going to be other repercussions, but what it is to break that cycle so that the person doesn't have repeat injuries. So if you look at Nathan Cleary, for example, there is a lot of examples of people getting one head knock and then they seem to get repeated head knocks. There's the cricketer, Bukowski, is it? I probably got that name wrong. That's basically had to give it away because he just kept getting hit. There's been a lot of footballers where they've had to be reduce their load, and some of them have retired because of fear of the ongoing impact. And so we don't want those patterns to repeat. We want to make sure if it's happened, we learn the lesson and we don't have any of those ill effects. Whether there's more challenges down the track, well, that's a whole other conversation. I do know there's a heap of study around how trauma sits in the body, and maybe, like, I don't know, but maybe that does contribute to something like CTE and other things like Alzheimer's, which you may be more predisposed towards after concussion. Although, is interestingly, I think it was Roy Simmons talking about it and saying that, once he got diagnosed Alzheimer's and then started doing more research, he realized that there's actually a pretty big percentage of the population that has it. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was saying that it's actually not necessarily a bigger percentage, necessarily football, but maybe more of a lifestyle thing. And yeah, so there's all these other things that could be playing out, and certainly not to say go out and get head injuries because you'll be fine. That's not what I'm saying. But we want to make sure we remove the pattern. We want to make sure we remove any of the mental, emotional, and spiritual trauma from a head injury, so that the body can come to that place of being able to heal itself, which it does so well in the right conditions. There's still a heap of things that you need to do around nutrition and exercise and all of those things, of course. So there's so many different levels to it, but focusing on this area, particularly if you're a sports person or you're someone who's prone to having these repeat injuries, is that you can change that. You can actually remove that pattern that's been running from a young age. You might have been like me that saw my dad do it, repeating the patterns, and the perfectionism side of things. I can't answer for Nathan. I'm only speculating. He's got a lot of pressure on him as the best player in his team and the best player in the league, and he would set himself extremely high standards, and from all I've heard, he does. He's also got a high profile relationship now with someone living on the other side of the world, so there's a whole lot of areas where he could be searching perfection and just unable to get that, not because of anything more than like patterns. I'll tell you how the pattern started for me. So I had this conversation with my sister as well, doing math tests. My dad was a math teacher. We were all pretty good at arithmetic, and I can remember in year 7 topping the year, 160 something kids in the year 7 maths test, because it would have been mainly arithmetic at that time, and I got 91, I think it was. And there were the 9 marks that I missed were I felt like they were easy things to answer, and then my dad made some comment about that. Oh, what happened on these questions? And he was right, because it was why did I miss those? But the young brain's impressionable and can sometimes take that as, well, I've got to be perfect for my dad. You know what I mean? Now, my dad was saying it very much tongue-in-cheek and in jest, but when you're young, you don't always take it that way. My sister had a very similar story around maths test as well. I've said similar things to my children, mainly because I know they're capable of better, and because also, even though I've learned a lot of this stuff, I still make mistakes. So this pattern can be going from a young age. It's not saying that the parenting's bad. Well, you only got to look at the relationship that Nathan has with his dad and the results he's getting, that they've got a great relationship, but that doesn't mean there still aren't patterns there that are having an impact. So that's the concussion. Kinney, the neck injury, I'm not sure it's been confirmed one way or the other, but I've heard reports from might not be too bad to potentially 5 months, potentially neck surgery. Well, neck is all about flexibility. And I don't mean physical flexibility, or that's how it shows up. It shows up as a neck injury, but it's an inability to be flexible in different situations in terms of your behavior, how you're showing up. So there might be a different situation in your life where you are so steadfastly sticking to a way, and you think this is how it has to be, and you're not having that flexibility of thinking, of behavior, that isn't necessarily in his football. I mean, it could be, but more often than not, it's in personal life, and things going on in personal life definitely impact your career and your profession. And of course, sport's going to be no different. So if you've got a neck injury, interestingly, which I've had a bit of a tight neck this week, so I've been sitting with that and wondering where I'm being inflexible at the moment. And yeah, if you're prone to neck injuries, and that's the question to ask, where am I being inflexible at the moment? And of course, if you need to get medical attention, you get medical attention. I'm not saying to ignore that. But my go-to is always, what's the mental and emotional side of it first? Will that allow the body to get into that state where it's feeling more relaxed and it starts to feel better by itself? That's where you are capable of getting to. Yeah, if you approach it that way. Yeah, so my sister, who's certainly not as far down the rabbit hole as I am with this stuff, still looks at things that way as well. She checks it out. She gets the medical attention she needs, but she also understands there's an underlying reason for that and addresses it. I probably mentioned before the book, The Body Keeps the Score, fascinating read from a guy who worked with Vietnam vets and noticed these same patterns and the impact of trauma on the body and how it sat in there physically, it sat in there mentally and emotionally. And the last one I talked about is poor old Pappy, Ryan Papenhausen, another injury. Now, ankles are all about being able to move forward. So when you keep having reoccurrence of ankle injuries, it's a fear of moving forward. I shattered my ankle at uni when I had a fear of going to do prac teaching, because I was shitting myself. I was not a confident young man. I had all these assignments I needed to get done, and the injury was like, I actually talked about it the day before with my friends. I said, I'll just break my leg at soccer tomorrow. I won't have to worry about any of it. And well, didn't I what? A spiral fracture, shattered my ankle. Yeah, and absolutely had that fear of moving forward. So what is the fear for Ryan Papenhausen? Like, it could be that he doesn't feel he has the stability. My ankle's about stability to move forward, to navigate life's challenges. There might be a fear of really stepping into that next level. Like, when he's playing at his best, people talk about him, mate, those rep teams, and he always seems to be injured right before those things happen. Interestingly, Nathan Cleary's been injured a few times as well right before rep season. So, yeah, who knows what's going on there, but there could be a similar thing of he got a bit of bad press there when he didn't sort of ice the game when he was only a young man. But again, the perfectionism, maybe there's a bit of fear around that as well. Who knows? But yeah, the ankle, mine was right ankle, but the ankle is very much around that fear of moving forward, fear of challenges, that maybe feeling unstable in all of that. And again, without knowing what's going on in his world, I can't be definitive about any of what could be going on in his head, but I know this is what this part of the body is telling, is showing. There's something that needs addressing there, and you address it and you can remove that pattern. I worked with a woman 3 years ago around a hip injury, similar thing, moving forward. She had tried for 6 to 12 months. She tried physio, acupuncture, all sorts of different modalities, hadn't been able to get any relief from the pain. We did one session. We got to the bottom of what was stopping her from moving forward. And lo and behold, within a few days, the pain in her hip was gone. And she sent me, I'll try and find the testimonial. I might even add it to this episode. And she sent me this testimonial talking about how like she hadn't had pain there again. It came back once. She used the meditation I'd given her, and she'd never had pain there again. Something that she just couldn't shift with all of the different modalities she was working on. And we addressed the root cause, and the body got it in the right state to be able to heal itself. It's an amazing thing. Think about when you cut your hand open, how the body will regenerate. Like that, it seems obvious because we've seen it so many times, but it's mind-blowing how amazing the human body is. And it has so many more capabilities than what we realize. And the more you go down this rabbit hole, the more you learn, the more you discover about what's possible. It's it's pretty exciting of what the capability of the human body is. So that's the weekly persona wrap. I'll leave it there. Have an awesome week. If you are someone who's prone to injuries, then have a think about what could be happening. Sit with it, reach out and ask any questions if you have any. And I've come across one elite athlete, an Olympian who's probably going to, well, no, he went to Tokyo, but he missed the next Olympics, but he's keen to get back into it, but he's running a bit of a injury pattern at the moment. So I might have found my first athlete, but I'm just looking for 2 more elite athletes to be my guinea pig. So if you know anyone, or if you're that person, reach out and let's see if we can get you pointing in the right direction and remove that pattern.
So I had been experiencing some hip pain for a good 6 months on a significant level. I had been to numerous chiros, physio, massage with very minimal relief. And I realized that it was more than just childbirth or running or some physical ailment. And I thought, I'd been reading some stuff on trauma trapped in the body, and I thought, I know someone who offers a service, and I'm gonna entrust him to see if he can release my issues. Now, I hadn't told him what it was about. Got on the phone call. Straight away, he identified the issue within my hip and some trauma relating to myself at 9 years old when I lost a grandfather. And then the following year, my parents separating and losing my father. So all of a sudden, there was this magnificent emotional release in my hip, like tears coming out of the floodgates. And I had never felt anything like that in my life before. And I realized, wow, this was not a physical pain at all. And I've been carrying this since I was 9, and I'm now 36. And in one session with Ian, I was able to overcome that. And I'm now been pain-free for at least 4 months. And it's one tiny time it came back up, I was able to just hop on, grab one of Ian's meditations and release that grief and trauma. And I have been running and doing all the physical things that I thought I was never going to be able to do. Also have secured in myself that I won't have to go and have a hip replacement like my mum did, which is a magnificent thing.
You've taken the time to listen to this whole episode. Now it's time to take action. Commit to one thing you've learned today and make it happen. And to avoid any obstructions, join the Sport is Life movement by clicking on the link in the show notes.